Hey, everybody, welcome back to Post Status Draft. I've got a special guest today, and I'm excited because I've worked with this awesome professional for, I think it's been 5 years now. 4 years? No, probably 4.5 years now, Kelly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so back when I had just sold iThemes, I was working my job at trying to transition team, get some things done in the year after we had sold. And I was starting to percolate, okay, I've got this huge career change coming up, this huge business, whatever change in my professional life. And I sought out a coach and found Kelly Gallagher. So she is my professional coach for 4.5 years. We're going to have a great conversation talking about coaching, times when it's so helpful to have a coach. And I'll share personal experiences too, but you're in for a treat today. So Kelly, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I've been watching some of your podcasts and I'm just honored to be the subject of one of them. So thank you.
I often refer to Kelly as my secret weapon because a lot of the big things that have happened in the last 5 years, for sure, in my life, I've rehearsed, practiced, talked through all of these with Kelly. So, Kelly, tell us a little bit about your background.
Cory, I come from a business development specialty within corporate America, specifically pharmaceuticals and the medical industry, and also diagnostics and lab testing. So I was a road warrior. I was out closing deals, and my responsibilities escalated and escalated to the point where the last 10 years I was with a diagnostic lab, and I was also training other salespeople. I was interviewing them, hiring them, and then coaching them. But I didn't know I was coaching them because I wasn't sure even what coaching was. I wanted to take over the training department. So I was told, well, you have no experience, even though I was already doing it. So I challenged and said I would like to go back and get my master's. And I entered the coaching program at UTD, which is just gold standard industry. I don't know. It turned out to be one of the best. And so I entered that. And then while I was doing it, I thought, why not just get a master's in business administration? Because I already know these things. So I went to school for 5 years, and it was the best 5 years of my life. I learned that I love to learn. And I think that may be what separates good coaches from great coaches, is that constant wanting to move the bar up, that constant going to class mentality to be at another level. And that's what's really defined my career. There's not really a time of the year when I'm not in continuing education. And it's my passion. I want to be a master of my craft. So that was my journey. The interesting sidebar is I was told, you can do all this, but if your sales performance drops, we're done. We're not paying. I said, okay. But the more I studied coaching and communication, the higher my sales grew. And there's actually a correlation between the two. It doesn't seem like there would be, but I learned how to really listen. I was a good listener to begin with, but I became just a great listener and observer of behavior. And I also learned how to challenge people. So if a buyer told me, yes, I'm definitely going to, get the contract signed, and I sensed a hesitancy, I would call them out and go, you're saying one thing, but I'm hearing something else. It sounds like you're still uneasy. And a lot of times by doing that, I could tease out that they weren't going to buy it. And we could have further discussion. So the coaching actually, when I finished up my sales career, it was as far as I could take it, but I owe it all to the coaching training.
That's awesome. Now, I know you have ICF credentials and all that, and you can share a little bit about what ICF is, but so I know you are very involved there, have done, there's so many regular, like you said, I do a lot of work with mental health practitioners, and there's such a very, I would say regulated, but no, like very intense and purposeful way to do therapy. A lot of guidelines, a lot of regulations, a lot of licensure things, ethical consideration, continuing ed. But coaching has so much of that too. And that's where ICF comes into.
Yes, and unfortunately, there's not a specific license. I wish there was. But because there isn't, the consumer has to really be discerning. And one way to start is that ICF, because it's the gold standard. And if a coach is not doing continuing education and involved with ICF, I don't know. Chances are there will be less rigor to what they're going to be able to do. It's not that they wouldn't be good coaches.
Yeah, I think the ICF stuff is strong. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit too limiting, but I go, gosh, it's so good because it's trying to really professionalize the coaching industry where anybody can just say, oh, I'm a coach, I'm a life coach, whatever it
Well,
is.
and people just hang out a shingle and say, boom, magic, I'm a coach. I too think it can be limiting, but I offer a bit of a hybrid. Because I have so much business experience, I'll often tell my clients, hey, I'm going to shift out of coaching if you want. Is it okay if I put on my business hat? And I never had anyone say no in 10 years. And so then I'm able to interject a little, you know what, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's what differentiates me from other coaches. But the ICF standards are just critical. And the other thing about the ICF is you have to have 250 hours of continuing education to keep getting the licensure. No, it's not a license, to keep, being endorsed. And so that really raises the bar and enables a coach to really grow because you're constantly taking a course.
Yep. So super, super strong. By the way, if you're listening, you want to look if the coach has ICF certifications and all that. It's really important, rigorous work that they do to keep that up. It means to me, it goes, they're taking it very seriously, their profession. So Kelly, what is a coach? We're going to spend some time talking about the times in which a coach has been so valuable to your clients, to me, and we're going to share experiences around that. But first, I kind of want to get a baseline of like, what is a coach?
Great question. I mean, a coach, I had this conversation this morning at the pool at 5 a.m. Someone said, oh, you're going to coach. They just want content. I said, no, that's not really what coaching is. I'm not really delivering content. I think a coach is someone that walks on a journey with a professional who wants to raise the bar. It can be a life coach too. So then you're walking the journey with an individual who has an area of life where they want to improve or progress. And that's still the same formula for going through the coaching process, whether it be an executive or whether it be someone who wants to increase communication with their husband or wife.
Oh. Yeah. And part of how we were working together when we first started working together was I was going to the same school you went to, which is fantastic, University of Texas in Dallas. And their coaching program is incredible. And being mentored by you, and because I was getting asked when I left iThemes and I was trying to do my own thing, thought, okay, it's going to be coaching. People go, what is a coach? What do you do? And I was like, oh gosh, I'm struggling with these, but it's so much that it's that walking alongside a person on a journey. And I like what you added to it is like they want to raise the bar. They want to do something more. And, I've so much reflected about my business entrepreneurial career for the last 15 years ago. If I had had a coach from the beginning, it would have been so much better in many ways, not just success for sure, but also health, clarity.
Well, it's funny you say that, Cory, because even 20 years ago when I was in pharmaceuticals and I was doing very well, had I had a coach, I would have been a rock star because there were rough edges that I couldn't see. You can't see them in yourselves the way someone else can who's actively listening to you.
Yeah. Well, and the parallel we always give is sports. The best, greatest of all time athletes have coaches and have people around them. Like you just assume they wake up and they're just this good naturally. No, they work on their craft. And I think about that so much. Like, I know you work with a lot of high achievers, and oftentimes so many of the entrepreneurs I've worked with, very high achievers too. I've had the pleasure of having people on my team, big time high achievers. And
Right.
you just go like, if you really want to do well in what you're doing, you need to have somebody that's on your side. Nobody does it alone. I think that's the farce that we perpetuate in our culture, and especially in business, like with entrepreneurs, is like, oh, I'm the rock star. I do this by myself. That you got these icons out there, you know. Steve Jobs is the one you hear over and over and over 100,000 times. You go, he didn't do it alone.
No.
Like there's no way you can do it alone. And having someone in your corner that's helping you perform at the highest level is so critical.
Yes, I agree. And, oftentimes people will also say, well, isn't it like therapy?
Mm,
I would call it therapy 10x, because therapy's great. And I think everyone should go through that process at some time in their life. I really believe in it. But at some point, it's limited because it's just keeps moving into the past and feelings, and often sad feelings, whereas coaching's moving the person forward. So high achievers get bored in therapy
mm.
after a while. After a while, and they might go back and forth to therapy, but generally they find that coaching helps them because it's goal oriented.
Yeah. Well, and I know there's a big distinction between therapy and
Yeah,
coaching,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
really try to, they're distinct things. And oftentimes probably you have taught, it's mentioned like therapy is looking back, coaching is looking forward. Is that how you kind of see that?
Yes. And, as a coach and a credentialed coach, I'm ethically bound. If I feel like someone continually goes into therapy waters and themes, um, I'm bound to refer them on to therapists till they are more stabilized. And then oftentimes a lot of my clients are in therapy and coaching together. They really work well hand in hand.
Yes. In fact, for the bulk of the time right now, I am not currently seeing a counselor. However, for the last, let's see, 2 months, but for the bulk of the time we work together, I've had a counselor and a coach. So
I
I think they're yin yang. They're
Right. And the people that come to me and have had some therapy, even if it was limited, they have just a little bit more self-awareness. So coaching progresses faster.
yeah. If you're
And
doing your work too.
because otherwise, I get clients sometimes will say, well, what does it matter how I'm feeling about this? Well, it matters a lot because, your heart is just as involved in these decisions and actions and creative things you're asking yourself to do as the frontal lobe of your brain. So they are connected.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about what coaching is a little bit. We talked about the distinctions, therapy versus coaching, and how they're additive and can exist together. And in fact, are even better sometimes, oftentimes, especially in my experience, I would say. But I'm curious, Kelly. So I know my own personal experiences related to our coaching professional relationship. But I'm curious, what are the times you see people get into the meat of this kind of conversation between us? Is like, what are those times when people go, oh, okay, they're thrust out to go actively look for a coach and end up, in a room or a meeting with you?
I would say that generally there's some type of struggle. It can be a conflict at work. That's a huge one because that dips into, well, do I want a career change? And sometimes people come and they don't know what they want. They're just not happy. People who want to progress with that, to find meaning and integrate what they're learning about themselves, will come to coaching because that process, it really is like turbocharging the job search and turbocharging people to take interviews and move on and move up without really any kind of formal instructions, just that self-awareness that it builds. So that's one of the big ones.
Let's talk about struggle for a second. So struggle, back to that. So is that, so you mentioned a couple of factors there. I want to hit both sides. One is maybe I need to make a change, like move out of what I'm doing. But there's another one, which is maybe I want to get promoted or have been promoted, or, within an organization too. And I'm curious your experiences around that too. So I like that it starts with like, there's some kind of struggle and they're seeking outside perspective and help,
Yes.
support with that. But it starts with something they're trying to change and wrestling against, sounds like.
Right. And many times, when you're in a new position or you're in a position where you are striving to do something else within that company, you will conform to their expectations and almost wear a mask to the degree that you lose something in the translation, because then you're not really connecting with your creative side or your problem solving side or your heart. And so a lot of work can be done to find that balance for people. The other thing that touches on is fear of failure. Fear of failure is, it's just a sweet spot, because so many points of wanting to change, if we whittle down and we go with the client, well, what's beneath that? Well, what's beneath that? Well, what's beneath that? And we get down to the core or the middle of the onion, it's fear of failure. And that's just a part of being human. No one wants to humiliate themselves or fall down. But I think too, in our society, think about schools nowadays. Everyone's given a trophy. Soccer, everyone's given a trophy. Swimming, everyone makes the team. No one's not on the team. Great. So children are raised to not really fail or understand that they failed at something. And I think in a way, I like the philosophy, but in a way, I think I see a lot of young adults who come out into the world and they are terrified, bad of not getting the trophy, of not. And the reality is, in real life, you don't get that many trophies.
Yep. Well, that was that fear of failure thing. We talked our last coaching session about that specifically, and totally like, when especially if you've been accustomed to winning, succeeding, and then you hit some failures or trying to do anything big and new, take that next job, start that new endeavor, whatever that is, and that oh, this is not a guaranteed success. So that definitely resonates.
Right. And if I fail, that also relates to a further theme of then the fear of being actually seen for who you are. It's a heavy topic and it can take a while to work through, but I think most of my clients would say that's valuable work. And it's not that they become fearless, but I think they're able to notice the emotion, name it, and then kind of negotiate it.
Yeah, you mentioned the word emotions, and I think when I first started working with you, I didn't go that realm. I was, okay, more intellectual thinking process and stuff, and you're extremely helpful with that. And probably because of some of the, understandings between therapy and coaching, or misunderstandings, I should say, I didn't really get into that. But I think our best work has come with the emotions. Like my definite, I've benefited every time we've talked, been better for it. However, I think the most profound times is when we get into, okay, I'm doing this thing. It's an event, like you said, a struggle or something new or a change or something I'm preparing for. But then, okay, the emotion around that and understanding that and leveraging, really deep dive into that where I'm trying to improve. I can't remember how many times you said to me, okay, well, they are not in this call. What is that? What about you? And I was like, oh man, doing that hard work, which has I know it's made me better as a professional and a leader, for sure, because oftentimes you kind of redirect back to me and go, okay, well, they're not here. Let's talk about what this means to you, for you. And I'm always like, well, let me take a deep breath on that one.
That's a hard one. I learned that. I actually didn't learn that at UTD or anywhere. I learned that as a young rep out in the field, and I'd complain about these idiot customers, right?
Uh-huh.
And the manager told me once, he said, turn your rearview mirror to your face. And I did. And he goes, now look at that. That's the person that would have to change. The client's not going to change. And it was the most profound thing. It kind of hurt my feelings, but it was so true.
Well, I've talked through everything with you, from partner, team issues, all that. And it's been so helpful, because I think oftentimes I'm kind of thinking, okay, yeah, they've got to change. There's something with them. And the real work, profound and deep, that continues to get deeper, is what does that mean for me, about me? What do I need to change something? And what is that? And those are the times, really, in reflective work, that I go, okay. And more, I think I'm getting it, where I go, okay. So something I'm unaware about myself, potentially, pointing outwards, and then going, I kind of need to turn the rearview mirror back to myself.
Back to your face, yes.
It's not
But
the easiest thing to do, but I'm glad you do it.
it's not the easiest thing to do. And in periods of conflict or intense conversations with bosses or colleagues, people you're supervising, it's extremely hard to stop yourself and say, wait a minute, who am I in this?
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. But I think as people progress in coaching, they become almost a coach within themselves.
Yes. Yes. I can hear you quite a bit.
Doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that would be my goal, is that when I'm not there, because I'm not there all the time, and I don't know half of it, even though I know so much, I don't know all of it. But my goal would be, when that person's gone for a week, or they're in a high stress situation, they're able to somewhat coach themselves through it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, okay. So we talked about the struggle, conflict, something's going on. They're wanting to reach something new. Maybe they're evaluating a big change. I mean, that resonates with me. That's how we kicked off our thing. It was like, I was changing my profession, career very substantially, knew I was going to be leaving the company I started, and, okay, here's a totally new avenue, and having somebody to talk that through. The fear of failure, the emotions of being an achiever, especially a high achiever, trying to do something in the world like an entrepreneur. What are some other things that you see often in your coaching?
Well, I would say the other thing, the theme is some type of organizational change. Because you're in an organization, of course, they're always changing. And there are new standards, and people don't. We talked about that before we went on tape, that sometimes people don't like change. So being able to go in and help a person challenge their assumptions about the change, really recognize within themselves any negative thinking loops or extra baggage they're bringing into the situation, and then thrive throughout the change, would be a big theme. And as they go along, they learn about themselves, and then to integrate that learning back into the organization that's changing, because change is constant.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever been in an organization in 30 years that wasn't doing some type of change. It's almost never static.
Yep, absolutely. Well, there's two things I think about when we've worked together, and what I know of coaching too. It's the word change that you said, like some change, big change, oftentimes big change. The other side of the coin for me is performance. So continual performance. So and I think about those listening in, why you want to get coaching for yourself and your team, is that performance factor. Like, it's an investment back into yourself or your team if you're providing coaching. I think some of the great organizations, particularly in WordPress, I've heard of, because I've referred people to you that happen to be in WordPress. I go, oh, I love the forward thinking of they're going, it's an investment in their people. But the performance side, so we've talked some about this change side. There's something going on in how we wrestle and adapt to that change, where we talk about emotions and different things. And then, but the other side to me is I can't remember how many times I call it performance, but what I think it is like preparation. I mean, some of the biggest deals I've done in 5 years have been rehearsed, practiced, polished, perhaps even with you. And gosh, I didn't have that my previous 10 years. And I thought, wow, I went into so many situations. I thought I had done my preparation, but doing it with you, with a coach, made things so much better. I think through that process, Kelly, it also illuminated like things I wasn't aware of, things I hadn't thought about, and just an approach to get some like clarity.
Clarity is a big one. And I think that goes into the third bucket of communication skills. Just people sometimes come to me and it's either a struggle or there's conflict, or they're going into a big sales promotion and they're not quite sure how to go about it. So that would all fall into the bucket of communication skills. And that's a big one. I don't think oftentimes people think they're coming across one way, but it's quite different if you're observing them. The other thing is they, like you said, you'll rehearse and rehearse, but when you get in that situation, sometimes hopefully you're primed with enough rehearsal to lean back. If you forget what you're going to say, you can lean back into the gist of it. So I think for performance, though, it comes down to communication skills and confidence, because in selling, sometimes it's not what you said anyway, it's how you said it. And you can walk in, if you say it with conviction and you have that internal clarity, as you mentioned, and conviction, the little wordsmithing and nuances of it aren't going to matter. They're going to matter. But the capital A to achievement or performance is how you said it.
Well, I didn't say this in the beginning, but we now meet twice a week. And I think we've met twice a week for the last year or two.
Right.
And that was out of, I need these times, kind of book in them at the kind of front of the week and the end of the week. But oftentimes I realize so many times it's just seeking clarity for myself. And those of us who are leaders out there trying to give a clear vision to somebody else, I'll just say it. Maybe other leaders just wake up with clairvoyant vision. I don't. I need rehearsal. I need work. I need to bounce it off people. I need a coach to help me kind of ask questions, think it through. And every single time I'm better. I remember some of the biggest ones that I've like talked to you, and it's not even one session, it's maybe two or three. We end up talking about it. But I go, gosh, if I hadn't had that, I would have made so many mistakes going into that big decision or time of presentation, whatever that was. And I'm so better for like, I just needed practice and realized I couldn't just do that. I needed someone else to help me. And that's where you've come in and done that. And so clarity for me is like when you say, when people would ask me, what's the biggest takeaway for coaching? I go, clarity. And what does clarity build? What you said, confidence. And those two alone have made me a better leader. That's why I can say, let's just go back to the start of my career. If I had a coach at the start of my career, everything would have been better because I've been more clear, more confident.
I think I'd be a millionaire 10 times over if I had just had a coach, because I did so many stupid things along with the good things that you don't know, but you do learn from failure. You do learn and you grow. And so, maybe not, but I sure would have liked to have a coach. It is a perk for high performers. If there's an employer listening in and they're thinking of who to send to coaching, yes, it can be remedial, but sometimes then it's not the employee's idea. The high performers will progress the fastest because it generally will be their idea. They want that perk and they want to grow their career.
This is my personal opinion, not Kelly's. I want to be clear about that. But I've been around organizations that use coaching as remedial. And I go, then what happens is coaching gets stigmatized within that organization of, if you're not performing and you're doing a crappy job, you're going to get sent. And it has a negative tint to coaching, which is not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be progressing, positive, helping, improving, navigating situations. And this one organization in particular, it's like, that's how they use coaching. And I go, oh man, like then all these high performers have this worry about it and don't want to potentially go into coaching and miss this incredible benefit to what coaching is.
That's so true. There's someone at my door. Can we pause?
Yeah.
You can edit this out.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we're talking about high performers.
Say what?
Yeah, we're talking about like high performers and performance coaching. And I do want to make the point that that's kind of what I think is my differentiator, is that I have all that coaching training, but I've been in the business world for 30 years selling. So if someone asks me about that, it's easy for me to switch hats.
Yeah.
Most coaches have like an HR background, so they've never really had to go out into the world and perform.
Right. Yeah, you bring both sides to that coin. What I think is incredibly helpful. Like I've talked so much with you about sales because it's a weak area. I feel like it's a weak area for me, but something I've had to do, been forced to do, and now trying to begrudgingly trying to do it. But I know you've got such an extensive sales background, business development background that I totally leverage that. In fact, I think that's how our 2 times a week started, was a sales academy, where it wasn't necessarily coaching. It was more like sales coaching.
Right. And it's very hard for someone to coach you if they haven't walked down the street.
Mm-hmm.
How can I guide you down a path if I've never been on it? I can coach and I can move you in many ways, but I can't exactly help you to perform because I don't know how to perform. So I think that is the differentiator in my coaching style is I've I've been there. I've been in sales meetings where I got humiliated. I've had clients slam doors in my face. I've executed $1 million contracts. So I just think it helps me to bring more to the party.
Yeah. And you understand the complete picture. That's why, our community is a lot of founders and a lot of high achiever leaders.
Right.
I'm curious your thoughts about entrepreneurs and coaching. Um, you know, I, I don't know your rest of your client base, but I am one. I know I've benefited from it incredibly, navigating change, big decisions, um, and the performance side. But what do you say to entrepreneurs about coaching?
I'd say it's essential because of everything we've talked about. In the end, as an entrepreneur, you're alone, right? That's what it is. That's the gig. You might have a few people on your team, but generally you're alone. It's very hard to win deals in isolation. So I would say having a business coach is key to moving forward, not only in all the things we mentioned, the clarity, the communication, the conflict, the struggle, but then sometimes you just have to go execute. And so for me, it's very helpful because I've been in that sales situation so many times and I understand features, benefits. I understand how to extrapolate from a client what's going to really matter and what's not. And I can help people with their slide deck or whatever it is they want to. So I can come in that regard like we do and be a consultant on Fridays, but a coach on Mondays, and then
Mm-hmm.
mix it up between the two. And
Yep.
most of my clients who are entrepreneurs use me in that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
they will sometimes just bring a slide deck or we'll practice a presentation or they'll practice what they're going to say to their team before they say it.
Yep.
Just get some clarity around it to understand how they're feeling in that moment of saying these wonderful things they think are going to move the team. And sometimes they come out of the meeting and they're going to say something completely different. Once we do the coaching, it's not that I ever told them to say anything different, but we, polished it, let's say. They come in with this big chunk of coal and they leave and they've got a little diamond and it's polished. And like you said earlier, they feel confident.
Maybe there's some entrepreneurs that come fully birthed into the whole process, but most of us have to learn it and grow through it. What I'm hearing though, big decisions, big challenges, big changes, and then the performance side, preparation, polish, um, getting ready for those big things too. And then the simply put, just trying to make the most of the opportunity. That's what I think about. Like so many high achievers I go with in entrepreneurs, like we have an opportunity. We often, like my story is I stumbled into it and go, wow, I have this amazing opportunity. So much with business. You go like it's right timing, it's right place, right people, right partners, all the things that have to go together for something to go really well. And then you go, I want to make the most of that. And that's my reflection. Is that I had an opportunity. I wanted to seize that opportunity to make the most of it. Now seeing, oh, wow. Now I did have a coach during about half of my business time, invaluable to help us with the organization. But I go, like, having someone that, this is why we keep working together, is I go, I just need it. It's just a part of making the most of who I am and my opportunities that come my way, to do even more. And it's not necessarily just about money, but it's about making the most of the opportunity.
Right, and joy while you're doing it. We haven't even touched about that, but there's that personal happiness factor. A lot of my clients either are working out, or I have them, I try to persuade them to start a fitness program while they're with me, but that joy, that love of what you're doing. You know, if it's not there, it's very hard to perform 100%.
Yeah. And you've been such a good coach, and you walk that talk. Kelly was telling me before we started the recording that she just ran a mile and swam a mile. And I was like, gosh, you overachiever. But it's such a good inspiration for me, for sure. Because that other aspect of just life and business and everything is just being physically healthy. And you are a great encourager, and you walk your talk.
I try. I mean, no one's perfect, but yeah, I definitely try. And I also find, because I work out a lot, I'm more effective for people because, it brings all that blood flow to the brain. So I shared with Cory that sometimes in between clients, I'll just run up a hill outside my house 4 or 5 times just to sharpen myself for the next person, because I can feel it within myself. Then I come in their house and I'm all happy again, and I'm feeling creative and supercharged and ready to go.
Oh, yeah. You can tell it with the energy you have, for sure. Well, Kelly, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us about what you're doing, share a little bit of the experience. I mean, they resonate with me. Everything you've talked about are things that we've worked on in our coaching sessions. And I've been better for it as a person on earth, as a human on earth, as a business entrepreneur, leader, all those. But anything else that you want to share that we didn't get to talk about?
No, I mean, what you just said, that's what I live for. That's my passion is, did I help someone? Did they feel better after did we move the bar? And I just live for success stories. And I find it so much more rewarding than just pure sales. Although I would have argued back then that I was making people's lives better because I had a terrific product or whatever. But somehow that, what you just said, just seeing personal growth in other people, I just kind of live for that. So thank you.
Bet. Well, thanks, Kelly, for being on. And thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll share in the show notes how you can get a hold of Kelly if you're interested in talking more with her. She's a fantastic coach. I can't, I've referred you numerous times to people that now I believe are regular clients with you. And they're dear friends of mine. And we always talk like, yep, just had my Kelly session. So.
Well, thank you for doing that. Yes, I don't really advertise. I only did maybe in the first year, but I think that's the other thing. Good coaches just kind of get referrals, and that's the way it should be.
Easy to do. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Post Status Draft. This has been another episode, kind of went out of our league, but I love to introduce people that have made an indelible difference in my life and to share their wisdom. So we'll see everybody next time. Thank you.